Nova Scotia's finance minister says his province and several others made it clear during a virtual call with federal finance minister Chrystia Freeland that the national carbon pricing scheme should be eliminated. Alan McMaster says that the message was conveyed, despite the fact there was no opportunity for discussion about the issue. After the virtual meeting, the provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta issued a joint news release calling for the end to the program. Joining us now to discuss the ongoing debate over the carbon tax is Dr. Jay Goldberg, Ontario and Interim Atlantic Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Dr. Goldberg, thank you for joining us on Forum Daily.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
We now have 5 provinces calling for an end to the carbon pricing regime. What do you make of this development?
Well, I think it's a very good development, and I think it's something that was inevitably going to happen because the Trudeau government has made statements and promises that simply aren't true. Families are hurting from the carbon tax. It's more costly to take your kids to school. It's more costly to heat your home. And the Trudeau government was saying for years that families were going to be better off with the carbon tax. The parliamentary budget officer says the average family here in Ontario is losing $478 this year, even after the rebates. We're getting into the colder months, and people are seeing the incredibly high carbon tax on their home heating bill. They're seeing it at the grocery store, where farmers have to pay carbon tax on farm fuel. You got to pay the carbon tax to transport goods from the point of production, such as farms, to the point of sale, like grocery stores. So, it's hitting all over the country. It's hitting everyone. And I think finally premiers all across the country are recognizing that it's simply making life unaffordable and it's not helping with the environment.
We know that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has pushed for an end to the carbon tax on all home heating to address those disparities. This motion has also garnered unexpected support from the NDP, although it ended up failing today in the House of Commons. Could you unpack this for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Conservatives put forward a very sound motion. The reason they did this is that the Trudeau government gave a 3-year pause on the carbon tax to households that use a home heating oil. So just 3% of Canadian households use it, but up to 40% of Atlantic Canadian households use it. So, they saw their poll numbers falling in Atlantic Canada. The Atlantic Caucus came to Prime Minister Trudeau and said, we want this exemption. He gave it to a lot of homes in Atlantic Canada, but the vast majority of people in Western Canada and in Ontario are using natural gas, which is actually cleaner than home heating oil. And so Pierre Poilievre was saying, if you're going to give folks a break for use home heating oil, you should be giving everyone a break, especially those households that are using a cleaner form of energy. And in the House of Commons today, we saw that the Trudeau government with the Bloc Québécois voted together to vote down this motion and fight against giving an exemption to all Canadians on their home heating. Look, we live in Canada. It's not optional to heat your home in the winter. And I think this is a very cold-hearted decision on the part of the government. And I think that it was good that the NDP stood with the Conservatives on this. And I think there's a lot of Liberal MPs all around this country who voted against giving folks a break on their home heating bills. I think there's a lot of them that are going to be sorry come the next election based on what they've voted today.
Some commentators have said that the exemption of home heating oil is the beginning of the end for the carbon tax. Do you agree with that view?
I think that's quite possible. I mean, I think the carbon tax was deeply flawed from the very beginning. We have evidence in British Columbia that shows that the carbon tax really isn't all that effective in reducing emissions, if at all. And I think we're also seeing now with the carbon tax impact getting as significant as it is, 14 cents per liter at the gas pump, over $300 a year on home heating, and it's going to be tripled in the next several years by the Trudeau government. I think enough households are feeling the pain. Canadians are recognizing this tax doesn't actually help the environment, and they're recognizing that it's taking a wrecking ball to their finances and making everything more expensive. So I do think it could be, and it's hopefully the beginning of the end for a carbon tax that is just making life more expensive while not actually doing anything for the environment.
So, what are you keeping your eyes on as this situation develops? We have 30 seconds.
Well, what I would keep my eyes on is we have to put the pressure on. Liberal MPs throughout this country showed that they don't have the will to stand up to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. and demand that their constituents get a break from the carbon tax on their home heating bills. So we need Canadians from coast to coast to stand up and say to Prime Minister Trudeau, we deserve an exemption. This carbon tax is unfair. The special carve out for Atlantic Canada is unfair. We shouldn't be having to pay a ridiculous tax just to keep our homes warm in the winter in Canada. And this tax has to go. So we need Liberal MPs to stand up on behalf of everybody in their neighborhoods and communities and stand up to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Thanks so much for your time today.